Are you ready to talk about the worst states to be a landlord in?
Yes, the states that you absolutely don't want to own rental property in.
You can't charge late fees until 30 days after rent is late.
The highest effective property tax rate in the entire country.
What's our number one, Seamus?
Number one is...
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Hey, Seamus, how are you today?
John, doing great.
Are you ready to talk about the worst states to be a landlord in?
Yes, the states that you absolutely don't want to own rental property in, even though I own rental property in at least one of these states.
That's embarrassing. Well, we're about to find out which states are making it really hard to own and operate some rental properties. So without further ado, let's start with number 10. What's number 10?
Number 10 is the great state of Connecticut.
The small state.
Yeah, I'm not sure what makes it great. Certainly if you're a landlord, there's not a ton. So state of Connecticut has top 3 highest property tax burden, right? And it keeps going up, making it harder and harder to cash flow your rental property. What else is it about Connecticut that's just fantastic if you're a landlord?
It's got that delightful New England tendency to have a bunch of meetings all the time. At the local level, they have fair rent commissions they're pushing for right now. And considering just cause eviction, which we're going to talk about a lot more in other states, that are these commissions are essentially places where a tenant can go and say, hey, they raised the rent by X amount. I feel that's unfair. And that commission gets to make a decision about your rent price.
Yeah. And what you can do with your rental property.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a ton of time and headache talking to people to justify your property decisions.
It absolutely is. And we're not going to waste any time going right next door to Massachusetts, which comes in at number 9, the number 9 worst state to own rental properties. What is it about good old Massachusetts?
So this one has a very strange rule. You can't charge late fees until 30 days after rent is late. No penalties at all. So that tenant can pay rent for their month anytime they want in that month, regardless of what your lease says.
That's incredible. That means you're going to be out at least 2 months before you're taking action, right? And it also makes it a lot easier for them to catch up and continue to push off potential eviction proceedings. Let's say, though, you do start the eviction process. That eviction case can easily sit in court for 4 to 6 months before it actually gets acted on.
Exactly.
Making Massachusetts no walk in the park.
No walk in the park.
Best Boston accent.
Let's head over to chilly Minnesota next. What's so bad about Minnesota, Seamus?
So, John, one of the challenges in Minnesota is you can't deny an applicant if they have an eviction currently in process. And you can imagine as a landlord, if a tenant has an eviction currently in process, it was the place they were just living at,
yeah.
Right? But you can't use that as part of your denial, and those records may not even show up on an eviction report. That's not the only thing, though, as Minnesota is continuing to add laws and then remove those laws and then add laws around rent caps. So I definitely anticipate seeing more rent caps coming to Minnesota shortly.
Yes. If you're not a lawyer, it's probably very unpleasant to read all those documents from your city council.
That's those classic upper Midwest politics at work.
Yeah, the classic upper Midwest politics. Yeah, whatever that means. Okay, let's head south to Maryland, Baltimore, D.C. area and everything like that. What's so bad about Maryland?
All right. As we look at Maryland, really we're going to zoom into Montgomery County. This is where Baltimore is, and they have a plethora of wildly unfriendly landlord laws, really punctuated by a 5.7% rent cap increase.
Yep.
And then they also provide funding for tenants that are going through evictions. And so you actually have to wait for the state to pay for legal representation for your tenant that won't pay for rent on your rental property. That just elongates the entire process of an eviction.
Exactly. So higher risk there. And you're also getting squeezed on insurance premiums in the DC metro area. Those have spiked 12% year over year, which is just bad news for people that own rental properties.
Absolutely. We are going to number 6, which is Illinois. And specifically, we're going to look at another county there. It is Cook County.
And we're familiar with Cook County because we build a lot of special products for landlords in that state. They're such a special place.
Absolutely. So Cook County, if you're not familiar, that's where Chicago is. There are restrictions on what can be used in the tenant screening process, as well as different addendums that have to be present in a lease agreement. As we look at the screening, though, what is the big sticking point for Cook County in screening? What can't be used?
Criminal history.
Absolutely. Which is obviously very challenging when you're trying to understand a tenant's ability to not just live in the property, but maybe get along with other tenants in units at that property.
Or you, if it's a duplex or something that you're also occupying.
Exactly.
You can't actually inquire whether the person you're renting the unit next to is a murderer.
Correct.
Oh, and they also have the second highest property tax as a state in America. The average bill is about $6,200.
Wow.
Wild.
All right. Next, we are headed over to the West Coast, who really put up a good showing that's going to dominate our top 5. But number 5 is the beautiful state of Washington.
Yes, beautiful state of Washington. And they just passed a statewide rent cap law, making them number 3. The other 2 states are further on the list. But the rule we really wanted to zero in on, because it feels so insane, is the 180-day notice law. So if you want to raise the rent on a lease more than 3%, or you are deciding not to renew that lease, you need to let them know half of a year in advance, which is just a crazy amount of time.
It's incredible. Your typical lease term is 12 months, right? So halfway through that term, you have to let the renter know whether you are or are not going to move forward in renewing that lease, or whether or not a rent increase is coming. It seems exceptionally burdensome for the landlord for really no reason. But that has been recent legislation that's passed in the state of Washington.
Yeah, it's pretty absurd. Twice as long as California for those keeping score at home. All right, and we're going to bounce down south, staying in the Pacific Northwest, to Oregon. And what's so bad about Oregon there, Seamus?
So Oregon does have a 10% statewide rent cap, which I find to be the second worst thing, or at least landlord-friendly aspect of Oregon. The big part about Oregon is a no-cause eviction. Why don't you tell our viewers what a no-cause eviction is?
So a no-cause eviction sounds scary, eviction, right? But that also means non-renewal of a lease. So in the case that you have a tenant who's been there for longer than 12 months, you do not have the option to not renew their lease. Even if you intend to move in, or you want to sell the property and you want to sell it vacant, anything like that, not a good reason. You actually have to have a lease violation you can cite to not renew with that tenant.
Exactly, which makes it especially dangerous to have a longer term lease that goes past 12 months, or even a 12-month lease that then goes month to month. You have to make sure that you're doing the non-renewal notice before it goes month to month to protect yourself, so you don't fall into that no-cause eviction area.
Exactly. And this isn't just a problem for Portland landlords, or Oregon's not challenging just for Portland landlords and the folks in the city there. If you go out west, the insurance premiums in places like Bend and Ashland have gone up 2 to 4 times since 2020. Due to wildfire risk and other things being priced into the insurance policies out there, which is just brutal for the cost side of the cash flow equation.
Absolutely. All right. So if you've made it this far, we're down to the final 3.
The final 3!
And number 3 is the great state of New Jersey.
New Jersey. Hey.
Now, New Jersey has the privilege of the highest effective property tax rate in the entire country.
Yep, at 2.23%.
Which is incredible. New Jersey is also leading the pack when it comes to the eviction court backlog, with more than 7 months.
Yeah, they call it the Garden State, but it's more like paperwork jungle.
The only state that's actually outdoing New Jersey is its neighbor, which we're going to talk about in position number 2.
Yep, and that's New York City, where evictions take literally years. Well, New York State. New York City, it takes literally years. I know there's some backlog in the state as a whole, but New York City is just bananas, and that's where the bulk of the population lives. So, the other piece about New York as a state in general is they limit security deposits pretty aggressively at only 1 month of rent.
Yeah, being a landlord in New York, and especially New York City, is fraught with challenges, and the laws keep changing in terms of what you can use for tenant screening, how much you can charge for tenant screening as well. So as a landlord, not only are you getting pinched if you have to go through an eviction, you also have to stay on your toes and up to date with local and ever-changing legislation.
That's right. It is not a consistent legal environment. Just like our number one. What's our number one, Seamus?
Number one is your home state of California. So
Ooh.
what is it that's so wonderful about California for everyone but landlords?
Well, California, like many of the other ones we were talking about so far, has a rent cap law at 5% plus CPI. And they also have just cause eviction laws statewide, similar to Oregon. Not only that, but similar to Washington, 90 days notice for eviction there or non-renewal. And then you've got all these cities that are just popping off different special rules that make landlords in those places especially vulnerable to changes of city policy that they're not maybe paying full attention to.
Yeah, and everyone knows too, California is not a inexpensive place to live, and rising property taxes and especially insurance premiums in some of those wildfire zones make the rental unpredictable, right? Which really hurts cash flow as you're looking at this investment property.
Well, that was our list of 10 that we evaluated. If you're at home thinking, well, my state wasn't on that list and being a landlord here is pretty hard, leave it in the comments. Tell us, let us know. Tell us what your state did that was so evil.
Yeah, and as always, we appreciate you. If you like our content, like, and as John says, smash that subscribe button.
Smash that subscribe button.